Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guest today, Dr. James Hildreth, the president and CEO of Meharry Medical College and also a member of the city's coronavirus task force. Dr. Hildreth, you recently testified before Congress that historically black colleges like Meharry need financial aid to help solve the problems of COVID-19, particularly, as we mentioned before, the disproportionate impact it is having in African-American communities. Now, Congress is spending a lot of money on the virus these days. Did you get any reaction from your testimony that maybe some more money may be coming to Meharry, or they may do something about your testimony?
Yes, so unfortunately, we've had lots of very encouraging follow-up conversations with members of Congress. We're also in communication with the White House. The White House seems interested in trying to be supportive as well. And it all comes down to, we think that the 4 black medical schools are uniquely positioned to have an impact in minority communities. And that's because of the inherent trust that we've engendered over many decades in these communities. And for example, when it comes to contact tracing, a lot of that will be dependent upon the contact tracers engaging people in a way that they will divulge some very personal information. And we think that we're in a position as organizations to put people out there who will be trusted, who can do this work. But it's also about the connection that we have to people who are suffering most severely from COVID-19. If you're brown, black, or poor, live in rural areas, these are the folks who've been devastated by the virus, and these are the folks that we are, by our mission, dedicated to serving. And so we just want to be part of the fight, and we think we have a some unique expertise and talents to bring to the field. We just want to do our part to help put the virus behind us. And that's basically what I was making the case for to Congress and to the White House.
Dr. Hildreth, is it fair to say that we'll not see the end of this pandemic or going back to any kind of normal to speak of like we used to remember until we have an effective vaccine? And is that going to be starting at the end of the year, 2021, or later than that, before we see everybody vaccinated?
Yes, I think it's clear that we can't go back to a new normal until there's a vaccine. Until we do, virus mitigation will be very important. Only less than 1% of the population, or about 1% of the population, has been infected so far. So that means there's another over 300 million people who are naive to the virus. So the virus, a lot of people can infect still. So until we have a vaccine, I think we're going to have to live with the virus and be cognizant of mitigation of the virus. So I don't think personally that an effective vaccine will be available by the year's end. It's possible. It just doesn't seem very likely. I think most experts, including myself, believe that mid-next year, late spring to summer of next year, is when the vaccine will be available. And that's not a long time in the grand scheme of things. But until then, we need to get used to the fact that the virus is going to be with us, and we have to take steps to protect ourselves.
Are we going to have to be even more strict about people being vaccinated? People don't like vaccines right now. They don't like to take the flu shot every year. Are we going to have to really bear down on people to make sure people do that, or maybe even quarantine them if they haven't had the shot?
Well, I hope that the awareness of vaccines and their usefulness and how well they can protect us will become very, very evident in the overall population as a result of COVID-19. But honestly, to make sure that we achieve herd immunity, we've got to make sure that as many people as possible take the vaccine, because otherwise, even having a vaccine won't change things unless the majority of us take the vaccine and become immune to the virus. So I hope the awareness now is at the highest level ever in terms of vaccines. But clearly, in order to be most effective to deal with the pandemic, we got to get as many people as possible to get vaccinated when the vaccine does become available.
Dr. Hildreth, there's so many efforts all around the world to try to do something with the vaccine. Does it bother you that it started to look a little bit like an arms race? Which country can get it first for whatever political or prestige they get out of that?
Well, I think that as a global population of scientists, we're all collaborating and trying to do our best to make this happen. But at the end of the day, our global leaders will have to come together and make some decisions, because for one thing, this is not the last pandemic we're going to have to deal with, global pandemic. And there needs to be a global effort for surveillance to identify pandemic viruses as quickly as possible and contain them where they are. And that requires a global cooperation.
Do you think
I hope that the spirit of collaboration we're seeing among scientists can also happen among nations, because we're going to need that to solve this problem. And so, I'm hopeful that that will happen. It's certainly going to be needed.
Got about a minute and a half left. This may be our last question. Do you think, much like AIDS, we're going to have multiple treatments, maybe multiple vaccines or a series of shots and treatments in order to get this under control?
Well, depending on the vaccine, it might only require one injection, but typically vaccines require at least 2 injections, a primer and a boost. And I think that's probably going to be the case for COVID-19. But to be honest, there are over 100 vaccines now being evaluated. So it may well be that in the end, it may be more than one vaccine that's available, and that will be just fine, because the more vaccines we have, the better. But clearly people need to know that we're going to have a vaccine, because there's so many brilliant scientists all over the world working on this. We're going to fix this. We're going to solve this. But we all need to do our part and wear a mask.
Thank you, Dr. Hildreth. Really appreciate you being with us. Thank you so much for what you're doing for the city, and thank you for being on the show. And thank you for joining us on Inside Politics this week. Hope you'll be back here again for a future show. If you can't get enough politics in the meantime, go to the Channel 5 website. You'll find my Capitol View commentary there. There's a new commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.